What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Fish the Moment. In this video, I'm going to show you 2 full hours of offshore bass fishing on Beaver Lake in Arkansas. You'll see how I graph structure with side imaging, down imaging, and 2D sonar, how I use my contour maps to identify key sweet spots offshore, and also how I adjust my baits and presentations to catch some tricky Beaver Lake bass. I hope you enjoy. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another Fish the Moment long form video. Today we're on Beaver Lake in Arkansas, and my plan is to show you 2 hours of fishing offshore with my electronics, Livescope, everything like that, and show you the full process end to end. It's actually the 3rd time I've tried to film this video on Beaver Lake. The cameras keep overheating, so I got out here really early this morning. I'm trying some new techniques to cool down the cameras. So hopefully we can actually get through this. I've caught fish in the other 2 long form videos I've filmed, but the footage just came out choppy. So trying to figure out this camera setup with all this heat here in Arkansas. It's supposed to be like 97 degrees today. But let me switch over here real quick to show you where we're at on the map. Switch over here so you can see we are currently over here, Prairie Creek area on Beaver Lake. Beaver Lake is a highland reservoir, relatively clear. We had some rain last night, so it's kind of humid this morning, and there's definitely some water coming into the creeks, but we're probably going to start on the main lake. I've been catching a few fish on some main lake standing timber, some main lake brush piles, stuff like that. And usually I don't go into these videos with fish found, but because I've been having camera issues and everything, I've already filmed this video once or twice. So I have a good idea of where some fish are, but that doesn't mean we're always going to be able to get them to bite. So that's always something to think about. We're going to be running a lot of main lake points. If we scroll in here, that basically have creek channels swinging up next to them. We're gonna be fishing some isolated brush piles potentially. Just kind of hit a bunch of different stuff that I've seen fish on. We're gonna graph it first, obviously, to see if they're still there. The fish on Beaver Lake move a lot and change pretty often, so it's not one of those things where you can just go fish the same spots over and over again and catch fish. And as you guys know, with these uncut videos, we can show you all of my side imaging, down imaging, 2D sonar, all this stuff. So we're gonna be showing you all these different screens as we graph through here. Fish finder's running a little bit slow this morning, but hopefully it'll kind of get its act together here for us, but we should be good to go. So that's should be good. We got our side imaging, down imaging rolling. Before we get into all this though, and before we get to the end of this no wake, let me switch back over here. I want to give a huge shout out to the 2 sponsors of these Fish the Moment long form videos. The first is Bridgeford Foods. Bridgeford has been a longtime sponsor of the Fish the Moment live stream, Fish the Moment uncut content like this. They have some of the best beef jerky on the market, and more importantly, they're one of the few non-endemic brands or brands outside the fishing industry that support bass fishing. There are very few companies like food companies or things like that actually sponsor bass fishing content here on YouTube. So definitely check out Bridgeford Foods, support a great company that supports bass fishing. It's a great snack to take on the lake, especially on a day like today. It's kind of salty, helps you so you don't get too dehydrated, get a little bit of salt, makes you drink a bunch of water because it is very hot out here. So huge shout out to Bridgeford for sponsoring this Fish the Moment uncut video. Put that over here so it doesn't blow out of the boat. And I also want to give a shout out to a new sponsor of the Fish the Moment uncut content. That's Integrated Boat Works in Tulsa. My friend Darren just started a new boat shop, and I wanted to help support him and help out his brand new business by having him be a sponsor of these uncut videos. Darren rigs up my boat. He does everything on my boat. He actually used to work over at the Bass Tank, who no longer does installation. They don't do that at the Bass Tank anymore. So I have now kind of gone with Darren over to the Integrated Boat Works side, and he's helping me rig my boat. We've got some cool, interesting stuff to show you actually today. We've got a new transducer for the Livescope. We have another kind of interesting Livescope setup that's actually off the back of the boat that I'll show you here at some point in the video. But huge shout out to Darren over at Integrated Boat Works. Brand new business, so definitely check him out if you need anything installed in your boat. And more importantly, if you are going to pick up some electronics, instead of going to Bass Pro Shops or one of these big box stores, go to Integrated Boat Works website, link down below, and get a graph from Darren. It really helps out getting these small businesses some traction, and he really appreciates it. So this is not a paid sponsorship for Integrated Boat Works or anything like that. I'm just doing it to help out a friend. So anyways, that's it for that. Let me switch back over here to my graphing view and double check that everything is working. I think we should be good. And so that's about it. Let's close that up. Put this in here for a second. Okay, there we go. Okay, this is the stuff you don't see, guys. All the getting prepped and prepared, take off. Normally I just cut out all this stuff, but we're gonna show you the whole process today. That's the plan. So let's get to our first spot. I'm gonna run to a main lake point with some standing timber that I saw some fish on a bit ago, and we'll see if we can catch some. Okay, so we got a nice main lake point here. It's in the mouth of a couple of major creeks here on Beaver Lake, and we have a nice channel swing that swings up right up against this point here. And there's some standing timber out here. Kind of feels like deja vu because I've already graphed this in a video before for you guys and did not get anything to save on footage. But basically the goal here is to just graph some of these standing trees with 2D sonar and down imaging and side imaging, see if we can find some fish. I do have some trees marked over here that had some fish on them like a week or two ago, but that is no guarantee that the fish are still there. We also fished those trees later in the day around like maybe 10 o'clock, and now we're here at 6 a.m. So these fish can move and shift and change a lot this time of year. I have been catching most of my fish on a core tackle hover rig and on a wake bait over the top of trees and brush piles. So that's kind of been my deal. I'm hoping we could find some fish that are kind of up and active on top of this point. There's a bunch of geese up here right now. Haven't seen that before, so I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign. We're about to find out. But basically, as you can see on the side imaging, we got a nice tree there. We're still in really deep water, 45 feet. And with my 2D sonar, the way I set it up, basically, there's some nice big dots right there. Those look like gar, though, on the side scan. The way I set my 2D sonar up is I like to set it so that I basically filter out all of the smaller fish on my graph and only show the bigger fish. And what that does is it basically allows me to graph these areas and filter out a lot of the junk. So you can see there's a bunch of random fish that are kind of set up in these trees. You can kind of see them scattered on the down imaging, but you barely see them on the 2D sonar because those are either smaller fish or they're very thin fish, so those might be gar. I'm like 95% sure most of those fish there are gar. Based on what I can see there, they're just really big dots, long arches, and very narrow arches on the 2D sonar. So like these fish, like right here, like that's a gar, that's a gar, that's a gar, that's a gar. So we're not gonna mess with those. When you see bass, usually they're not gonna have those super long arches. They're gonna be more stacked up on top of each other, a little bit more thick, and they're not gonna be as long. That's kind of the giveaway. Now, sometimes these arches, these trees will almost look like arches, so you kind of have to have a good eye for this too. You can kind of switch between your 2D and your down to kind of see what's happening. There's a lot of bait and a lot of stuff happening. Looks like there might be a fish or two in one of those trees that I marked. There's a fish that's actually setting up on top of that tree there. Very nice dot there that doesn't look super big up on the 2D. There's also a lot of bait. And there's several nice arches right there, and there's also, ooh, right there. That is what we're looking for right there, guys. See those two nice dots on the 2D sonar, sorry, on the down imaging? Right in here. They don't look super big, these fish right in here on this tree, but I'm gonna mark that. They probably look like they're pound and a quarter, pound and a half fish, but the thing about Beaver Lake is pound and a half, pound and a quarter fish are not bad all the time. If you can get 5 pound and a halfers in the boat pretty quick and then start calling out, that's not a bad way to start. So we're actually gonna hit this tree because that tree does look pretty solid right there with several nice dots in it. They're not looking very big on the 2D sonar. So again, because these fish don't really pop out on the 2D right here, but they do pop out really well on the down imaging here. Probably means they're smaller fish just based on my settings, but regardless, I think it's worth making a cast or two on the spot. I'm just gonna stop here with my mapping, switch over to my Livescope view. Let me switch over here, my Livescope, and then switch this for you guys. There we go. Okay, so we should be good there, and I'll spin this camera around for you. And what we're gonna do, those fish were in these trees basically, and if I get this kind of squared up, there we go. Fish are in these trees, and what you can do with these fish in these trees is a lot of times you can call them up out of deeper water to hit a topwater bait like a wake bait. Now, fortunately, I have this new Livescope LVS 34 transducer, which looks incredible, and you can actually already see that there's a fish about a second ago. You could see it 70 feet out near the surface, and that's kind of what we're looking for. I do need to get this hover rig untangled so that when I need to throw it, I can actually throw it. Kind of get yourself organized in the morning, guys, before everything starts going crazy. But there's a little bit of wind this morning. There's actually a fish that just busted just to my right. You can see over here, maybe, oh, backlash, oh man. They're busting, it's early in the morning. I want to get out there, and I'm backlashing my reel first cast. This is the stuff you don't see on regular YouTube videos. You see everyone doing all their really nice, perfect casts, and then you got me over here showing you my whiffs. There's a nice one. See that fish that's out there 90 feet? It looks pretty big. There's another fish right here. Oh, I can't even cast the thing in the wind. This wake bait's kind of hard to cast in the wind right now. Let me pick up this hover rig. Cast on that fish just really quick. There we go. That looks like a really big dot, so that's probably not a bass, to be honest. There's a bass there, though. It looks like way out at the end of the range, about 90 feet. There's some big dots on here on Livescope. Those really big dots are probably gar. You can see how wide, like that fish that's 40 to 50 feet out. See how it's taking up almost like that entire box or half that box? That's like a 5 foot long fish. So that's a gar. Don't need to mess with those. But we got, and like all those are all grouped together around 30 feet. Those are all gar. One just surfaced right there, which is another gar. So those are gar out here, and we did kind of see that when we first got out here. But if we move further up on top of this point, that's where we started seeing those spotted bass. And I'm actually going to switch to a different wake bait really quick. I just have a little clip on here. I'm throwing the Spro wake bait, which I really like. This is the Spro Zero Minnow, but in the wind, it's kind of hard to cast because it's long and narrow. And I seem to get more bites on this Zero Minnow wake bait than I do on this Megabass iLoud, which is one I'm switching to. But the iLoud is a lot easier to cast, and when you're fishing in the wind like this, even though there's not that much wind, it's a lot easier to fire that thing. So we're gonna switch over real quick. We're gonna get lined up. I wanna hit that one tree. So like the gar are out here deeper, it seems like, kind of just roaming around. There's a lot of gar up on this point. And there was just a few bass on that one tree, and you can actually see them up there, 90 feet out. That's the tree, 80 feet out. That's that tree that had those bass on it that I marked earlier. So we're gonna try to throw the wake bait over the top of that thing. See if we can draw. Ooh, one followed it. Look like there's a big gar there. One kind of tried to follow it out of that tree, I think, if I'm not seeing things. There's that tree again. Couple fish there, you can see. They're not really wanting to chase. There's a couple fish at like 70 feet out, a lot smaller dots, which means those are probably going to be spotted bass, most likely. They don't want to come up. Sometimes with that wake bait, they actually bite it better later in the day versus first thing in the morning. So I might have to go hover rig these fish first thing this morning as opposed to wake baiting them. It's weird because you would think a wake bait top water, that works better in the afternoons or in the mornings, and then in the afternoon you want to go to the hover rig. But a lot of times it's the opposite. Those fish actually want the wake bait in the afternoon and the hover rig in the mornings. It's kind of a weird deal. But you can see those fish. There's several of them on this tree right here in front of me. About 50 feet out. See if I can get my bait over there. Not really reacting super well this morning to my bait. I don't see any fish like darting around the screen, or there's one following it right now a little bit, but they're not waking it or anything. They're just kind of chilling around it. My bait's about 20 feet out. There's a couple fish on it right now. They're all just staring at it 20 feet out, which fish busting over here. Couldn't reach him, dang it. There we go. See that? There's a fish right there, 70 feet out. I've also been catching a lot of these roamers recently, like that fish right there that's at 50 feet. Didn't get a good cast on him. Where are you running? There we go. It's probably a good cast. Where'd my bait go? Oh, he's on it. Oh, he's on it. Come on. Eat it. There's 2 on it right now. Come on, 3 on it. 30 feet out. There's 3 fish on my bait right now. Come on. 4 fish on my bait, 20 feet out. There's so much bait out here. They've been doing this. It's kind of weird. These fish, they will, they'll come up and they'll look at the bait. A lot of them will, but not all these fish are going to actually come up and actually commit and eat it. It's very weird. Like they'll just come and inspect it and inspect it. And I think it's because these fish just get so much fishing pressure out here that they don't want to come up and commit, especially earlier in the mornings. I'm having a harder time getting them to commit than actually later in the day. A couple fish out there like 60 feet out. My bait basically just lands out there. It sinks down, and a lot of these fish, if you can get it in front of one that wants it, I mean, they immediately eat it. It's not like you have to sit there and coax them on it. You just have to, let me change my settings. I'm actually on the right settings just to double check. Yeah, we're on the good settings. Okay. I'm just learning this new transducer, so my Livescope settings aren't ideal at the moment, to be honest. I'm trying to get everything dialed in. But there's some fish that are kind of roaming. Like there's 3 right there. They're roaming. Those are bass at 50 feet. They're roaming around this point. And ideally what you would like to see is you cast at these fish and you see them actually sprint up to the surface to come try to eat your bait. And you don't want to have to like put it down to them, but there's a fish right there. He's coming up for it. Come up for it. Come on, eat it, fish. Oh, he's on it. He came up and just nosed it. And either, it's interesting, because either they come up and they just crush it and eat it, or they'll just look at it like that. There's not really an in-between. I haven't really found a way to like play with these fish and get them to bite. It's just, like there's one that's on it right now, about
30 feet away. I've sometimes tried to like do this where you get him to follow it up, follow it up, follow it up. He's right there. Eat a fish. Oh, and he swerved it. Dang. I've been doing that. That hasn't really been perfectly effective either. And I've just been trying a bunch of different retrieves with these fish to try to get them to bite, but it seems like more often than not, it's not really a retrieve deal. It's just if you put the bait in front of those fish and they're active, they're gonna choke it or they're just not gonna touch it. Like those are the two options. You don't really have a situation where you're gonna be able to like coax them into biting that well, which is really weird. There's a couple of fish that are really high up on the surface up there. You can see them up there. Ooh. They're following. They're like 30 feet, 40 feet out. I'm gonna try to wake bait these fish. They're very high up on the water column up there. The water out here is pretty clear, 4 or 5 foot of visibility. I'm gonna try to get this wake bait over the top of this point. Oh, one just tried to hit it. That was cool. You can actually, if I get the right cast, you can actually see my wake bait on Livescope. Let me get my depth range shallower. You can actually see the wake bait up there. Kind of keep my rod tip up, keep that wake bait going. But if I get it right, you can actually see my wake bait and you can see these fish come up and try to just shark it. There's a couple fish right there. So you can see there's fish out here. There's actually several fish. It's just, they're getting kind of picky right now, which is, oh, come on. One just hit it. Eat a fish. There's so many of them right there. They're all over my bait. There's my bait dropping 30 feet out. There's a fish on it. There's like 3 or 4 fish on it. They're all little spotted bass. I can almost guarantee you there's a couple of good fish that are further out. Fire that thing out there. May need to switch it up. I may change baits on this hover rig too. I've been catching them on a couple different baits. It's kind of weird. So some days I like a smaller bait on it. Some days I like a bigger bait. But I'm not gonna waste too much more time here, to be honest, because I've had these fish kind of swerve my bait and not really get after it. And they just might be in a weird mood. I've caught fish here, so I know there's bass on the spot. So it's not like we're dealing with something that's other than bass. But it's not always as easy just to find a spot where they're firing. That's one of the things about offshore fishing that is not talked about very much in like YouTube videos or things like that, is that timing is so critical in a lot of these spots. I'll make one more cast on this fish right here that's 40 feet out. Timing is absolutely critical. Like you can literally be on the spot when it's going down and catch 15 pounds or 10 pounds or a bunch of fish really fast, and it seems great. Oh, he's coming for it. Come on. Eat it. And then you can be there at the wrong time, and the fish are just swerving your bait like this, and they're just not even worried about it. So these fish are just acting up. So let's get out of here. I'm not going to waste a lot of time on these fish. We've probably wasted more time than we even need to. But there's a lot of kind of water to cover in the mornings because these fish are so spread out. But if they want it, they're going to eat it. Let me check my recording real quick. I'm going to pause this and then start it back up just to make sure everything is functioning properly with this new setup. Okay, it looks like the recording is doing okay. I don't know if it's perfect, but we're going to give it one more shot. This video may not see the light of day. We have no idea, but let's get rolling. We're going to run to a new spot. We spent about 10 minutes on that spot, which is not a bad amount of time. Casted several fish, didn't get any bites, so that's about typical for my style of fishing. I'll fish a spot for about 10 minutes. If I don't get bit in 10 minutes, I move on, and usually I don't catch fish but maybe every 5 spots on average. So it might take me 5 different spots to pull up on fish for 10 minutes before I actually catch a fish. That's very typical. If you can get, honestly, if you're fishing offshore and you can get bit within 5 spots of fishing, so spend 10 minutes on 5 spots, and on your 5th spot you're catching fish, that is really good. That is a pretty good average offshore, especially because fish aren't always in the perfect mood, time of day, all kinds of stuff. So we are basically 4 more spots to go
to see if we can catch some fish. So if we play the odds, that should be plenty. Okay, here we are, another pretty obvious spot here. We just have a point, main lake point, with a main river channel swinging up against it. We're not fishing anything super complicated, and honestly on beaver, I don't normally fish anything that's that complicated, because a lot of times these spots are very timing oriented and conditions oriented. The sun hasn't even got up over the horizon yet, and a lot of times with this offshore bite, the bite gets better around 7 o'clock, so it's still a little bit early even. Probably the best way I should be fishing right now is just to run the bank with like a top water or something like that. That would be probably the better way to catch him right now. But I only have a couple hours before the sun comes up and the camera stopped working. So we're not in the ideal scenario, but it does give us a few minutes to get comfortable with what's going on. And basically what I'm gonna be doing, guys, is graphing over these areas where, again, I've seen some fish around, but like on that last spot, those fish weren't in the exact same tree I graphed earlier. And that's one thing I see a lot of anglers make mistakes with when they fish offshore, is they try to fish the exact spots where they've caught them before, like the exact spots, versus graphing a larger area and seeing how the fish are repositioning on a given day. These fish can move and shift and change quite a bit on these lakes, so you don't want to get caught up on just fishing one particular spot on a point or one particular area, because these fish can shift and move a lot. For example, here's a big rock I found before, and it looks like there's still some fish down there on the 2D. They actually look pretty good right there. Several fish. And if we switch over to the combo view, yeah, there's a bunch of fish down there on that rock still, which is good. I'm going to basically fish that, just so you guys know, like all the little arches on 2D. So like these are all fish, all these dots here are all spotted bass, like 95% sure they're all spotted bass. And then all of these arches are also all spotted bass. But I also want to graph this point a little bit more, because there's no guarantee that that's the only spot where the fish are. Even though that's where I did find them earlier, I also want to graph up around this point to see if there's anything additional or better than what I found. And basically I'm using the side imaging here to kind of graph the edge of that drop. You can actually see on that far right side, there's actually a fish that's in the shadow of that drop right by a brush pile on the side scan, which looks really nice. Right in here, I'll pause this in a second, right? I just want to make sure I get this whole thing. Okay, right there, you can see we have a brush pile right there, and there's a fish right there. I'll move my cursor down, but it's like right there in the shadow of that ledge or that drop. There's a fish right there, and there's a brush pile. So we're gonna mark that brush pile because that looks really good. And the wind's blowing from this direction, so I'm actually gonna spin back around, and I'm gonna hit both of those little deals. Basically, the, let's see if there's anything else I hear. Ooh, is that a wad of fish right there on side imaging? Whoa, okay. There's a bunch of fish right there too, right off that drop. Wow. There's a little brush there too. Switch to this view. Yeah, several fish right on that drop with some brush too. So we got fish right here. There's a brush pile. We'll waypoint that. Bunch of stuff going on around this area. So several things to check out in a small zone. I also saw some fish back up on top of this point with my side view a second ago. These are all fish right in here. So we're gonna mark that. Okay, let's go back over here. I gotta do this all fast. Sorry if I'm kind of flipping around really quick between these spots, but there's a lot of stuff to look at in a small little confined area. There's those fish that were over here. There's a little brush and a little rock. I don't know if those are all, you can see that brush piles in the, she's probably covered up by my face, but there's a brush pile. We can see it on the left side of the side scan. But there's a bunch of stuff on this point. So what this tells me is that not only is this a good looking spot to just pull up and just start fishing, but there's a lot of potential area to cover. So I can start, I'm basically gonna get back to that initial rock pile that I graphed, fish that, and then make my way to these different brush piles I just marked. There's 2 brush piles in that school of fish, and I'm gonna work my way through the whole thing. And I'm starting on this other rock pile because, again, the wind is now basically at my back. So if we're coming from a mapping perspective, I basically want to position my boat into the wind. It makes it easier to live scope and boat position and stuff. So I'm going to position my boat over here and work my way this way because the wind is coming from the screen right now from the bottom left corner. So we need to basically position our boat so we're into the wind. We can work live scope a lot easier that way, and it should give us a good opportunity to kind of hit all these little spots. Now there's like 4 sweet spots in there. I'm expecting this is gonna take me about maybe 12 to 15 minutes to fish would be my ideal scenario, making maybe 3 to 4 casts on each of these spots. I don't expect to catch fish on every single one of these deals, but I'm hoping there's at least a couple active fish that'll come up and eat the hover rig or the wake bait off this stuff. That's kind of my goal right now, is not to necessarily catch fish off of everything and like sit there and really soak it, because I found that when I'm sitting there soaking my bait on the spot, I catch a lot of small, little tiny spotted bass versus the ones that just come up and eat right away or the bigger, 1.5 to 2 pounders. Okay, there we go. So that looks really freaking good right there. There's a bunch of fish. Actually, one just busted out the side of the boat. Ooh, that's a big gar. You could see that going down. That's a big gar out the side.
but there are some fish that look like bass all over this deal. I'm actually gonna extend my range just a little bit, depth range. Bunch of fish. I'm gonna try to stay as far away as I can. Just throwing a little 1/8 ounce core tackle hover rig with a Bass Tricks Flash Tricks on the back. It's a very natural bait fish imitating lure, and it's been doing work for me the past couple of weeks out here, especially when it's a little bit, there's a fish right there coming to it, come on. When it's sunnier outside, but I've also been catching on a Strike King caffeine shad. Man, that fish is right there, 60 feet out, he's on it. They're just not quite getting it. Let's move up. You can see there's more fish. Those fish there are tighter to the bottom. This is one thing I've kind of learned recently about these clear water lakes with the Livescope. The closer those fish are to the bottom, a lot of times, the harder they are to get to bite, versus these fish that are higher up in the water. You can see, oh, they're all coming for my bait. Come on. They are all after it. Eat it. One of you eat it. Come on. There's like 6 of them on it. Eat it. Oh my gosh. How are there that many fish on it and none of them are eating it? I have to change baits here in a second. There's so many of them on it. It's crazy. They're all down there, 50 feet. Wow. But none of them are actually committing. I've had this happen to me a couple days out here where, like, for whatever reason, certain times of the day, they just won't commit. And then other times of the day you come out here and it's like every single fish in the lake will just come and just destroy your bait. But we also may need to be throwing something like the wake bait over the top of these fish, which seems weird, but for whatever reason, there's times when they want to come up to the surface to eat something. My wake bait's there. I don't know if they're going to come up high enough to eat the thing. You can see it going across the surface actually, 40 feet. Need to fire that way. Now I'm going to change the bait too on, are they going to come up for my wake bait? Come on. Oh, they're coming up for it. Oh my gosh, look at them all. They're coming up 70 feet. They're all underneath my wake bait right now. Those are all fish coming up for the wake bait. Those are all spotted bass. They're on it 40 feet out. Look at all those fish following my wake bait. Look at them. Come on. Come on. Eat it. Oh my gosh. Look at all those fish. I'm going to try to fire the hover rig right in behind them. See if they'll actually eat this thing. There's so many fish that got behind that bait. It's insane. And then sometimes when you hit it right, they just come up and shark it. My hover rig's out there at 30, 40 feet. Come on. One of you eat it. Oh, you hit it. Oh, come on. He tapped it and didn't take it. These fish are so hard to catch sometimes, guys. It's crazy. Is that one gonna eat it? Oh, he got really aggressive on it. Just hold it there. When are you gonna eat it? Just hold it. Hold it. They're tapping it, tapping it, tapping it. They're all around it. None of them are actually eating it yet. All those fish at 30 feet are on my bait. Bring it up a little bit. Play with one. Come on, come on, come on. Don't swerve it. Come on, fish. Wow. That's craziness, guys. But when they really want it, they will just eat it. It's really weird. Drop to that fish below. Eat it, fish. I've tried drop shotting these fish. I've tried all kinds of stuff, and I cannot get these fish to bite, regardless of what I'm throwing at almost times. I'm gonna switch to a different bait though, on this hover rig, because this hover rig has been the deal to get these freaking weird fish to bite, and they will sometimes bite it, and you can see they won't they'll come up and chase that wake bait. It's so cool watching them chase that wake bait around, honestly, to the surface. They'll follow it. But sometimes there's just something about these fish, time of day or whatever, because I'm telling you, there's certain times of day, like, I don't know what the timing deal is on it. Switching over to a striking caffeine shad junior. It's another bait I've been catching them on. There's certain times of day, and I don't know if it's just going to be like here in the next like 30 minutes or what's going to happen, but eventually these fish are just going to start going crazy and just sharking it. And they'll just beeline up to the surface and eat that thing. I mean, I'm on a fish right now, and like you can see there's 2 fish there, and they're both just sitting there looking at it 40 feet out. And they're just staring and staring and staring, and they won't actually commit. Another thing I've been doing that's kind of interesting is, like, instead of trying to fish for all of these fish that are up here, there's a lot of random fish up here where they're grouped up. Sometimes it's actually easier to catch them when they're by themselves, which is kind of interesting. But like, just threw on those fish right there, and they'll come up and they'll get really curious about the bait, and then they won't commit. It's very weird. There's a bunch of fish on my bait right now. I've tried swim baiting these fish, jerk baiting these fish, all kinds of stuff. I'm going to pick up a jerk bait here in a second just to see to this next spot, because it may be one of those deals where I need to be throwing a jerk bait. Maybe they'll swipe at it and it'll actually get them to bite. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do at times to get these fish to bite. Like, there's a fish right there. Sometimes these fish are easier to catch. That fish is out there at 50 feet right now. It's kind of by itself. Oh, come get it, fish. Eat it. Come on. Come on. Get it. Get it. Get it. He got all around it. Sometimes these fish that are out here random, like that dude right there. Where he went. There's like random fish that are just swimming out here. Sometimes these are easier to catch than the fish that are up on the actual structure. I don't know if it's because these fish are getting targeted more, especially later in the day. There'll be random roamers that are off the drop that are way easier to catch than the fish that are up on top of that deal. And there are so many fish on these spots, but getting any of them to bite is an absolute chore. So like my jerk bait 50 feet out. There's a bunch of fish down there. See if we can pull one up out of those rocks. One's coming up for it right now out of the rocks. The ones that are willing to come out of the rocks are easier to usually get to commit. Those are very small fish, but not much. So let's kind of move. We're gonna move to that one of those brush piles. I'm probably gonna try to toss a jig in one of the brush piles. Maybe these fish are wanting to kind of be a little bit more chill this morning and I need to throw a jig. At times that can be a case. You just gotta experiment, guys. You can see I'm also, like I said, not expecting to catch fish on every single spot I fish today. It's 1 in every 5 spots at times, but it is frustrating when you see those fish just going crazy around your bait and you just can't get them to bite. It's very frustrating. So there's that brush pile. It's kind of hard to see, but it's right out there at 60 feet. Coming a little bit hot, actually. Slow it down a little bit. There's a few fish around that brush. Jig's down there 50 feet. This new Livescope, plus it makes it so easy to see these fish. You see your bait and everything. It's crazy. No bites there. I'm gonna fire this jig up on this point too a little bit, just to kind of crawl it. I'm actually gonna fire behind the boat because there's a bunch of fish out there. I'm just gonna kind of drag this jig behind the boat for a second, that direction, because there was a bunch of fish. You can see them actually, they're about 60 feet out, right tucked up against the bottom in 15 feet. And I'm thinking that maybe I can drag a jig on these fish. You just got to get the mood of the fish in the moment, because like those fish that are going crazy right now, that would go crazy on the hover rig and the top water and stuff, those fish at some point in the day are going to start committing and you can just smash them. But then, like right now, obviously it's not that easy. So you have to figure out what you can actually do to get bit. Even though those fish are there, that's a common mistake I see a lot of offshore guys making, is that they find fish with their electronics, but they can't get them to bite because they get stubborn on fishing a specific technique or a specific bait. And you just have to get pretty comfortable switching it up. You can see there's some fish down there. Right there too, 90 feet away from the boat, and another brush pile. I'm just dragging a football jig over those fish right now behind the boat. And I'm working it pretty quick because we still are in the early morning. I don't need to sit there and like soak it usually this time of day. I'm gonna fire on those right there. You can see them out there. There's a couple fish 70 feet out. Don't look massive, but they'll eat a jig even though small spotted bass, smaller fish will eat a jig. And we're not always out here just catch little ones. We also want to we want to give ourselves a chance to catch a 4 or 5 pounder if possible. So my jig's falling down there. It's right at 90 feet, 95 feet right now. Just hit the bottom. It's crazy how easy you can see that deal on Livescope. But yeah, we're gonna spend a minute or two more on this deal. This jig deal. Then we'll pick up that hover rig again and see if we can find some more just random isolated fish like that one right there that's a 30 feet. Like those fish, I've been able to get to bite on the hover rig, but it is usually happening later in the day. So I don't know how easy this applies to right now. I am working through that brush because a fish is going down to it right now, 60 feet out. I actually watched him swim down to it. Does he have it? Nope. There's fish that are on my jig right now. He swam down and looked at it, but he didn't eat it. So weird. That's the other thing about Livescope that's frustrating, is you can see all these fish and you think, man, I should just be able to get him to bite. A lot of times you can't. So don't get caught up and just sitting here fishing. And that's why I like to show these videos, because I might fish out here for 6 hours, 8 hours, and then I catch my fish in a little window when there's a couple of fish that actually are actively feeding. Hopefully you're gonna see a couple today at least. I just fire right on top of one's head, 80 feet out. Is he gonna come? Oh, he's coming up to it. He's coming up for it. 70 feet out. He's on my bait. Come on, fish. Commit. He's following it. He's following it hard. Swerved it 50 feet away from the boat. He's on it still. See, these fish get on it and then you follow it, follow it, follow it. Sometimes they eat it off the bottom like this. You can see him 30 feet out. He's following the thing all the way to the bottom. And I don't know why they wouldn't want to eat it if they follow it all the way down there. But sometimes you just let it drop all the way down to the bottom and just let it sit there. And sometimes they'll pick it up. That one did not. So annoying. These fish just they act so weird. And I think back in the day, before Livescope, this would happen all the time. When you're around fish, you graph them, you see them, and my old rule of thumb with this is that I would only make 5 casts on each spot, each little key spot, because if the fish weren't biting, they just don't bite. Most fish will bite first or second cast in these spots if it's happening. As you can see, like on these fish, they're following my bait around, they're getting excited, they're just not committing. And it's just, a lot of times it's just a timing deal. So a bunch of fish around here, but nothing super. Ooh, there's one right there. So see these fish, these are fish that are like ghost fish. They're out here in the middle, just randomly over the channel. These fish I've been catching a lot recently with the hover rig, and these fish usually are easier to catch. He's about to eat this thing, come on. Come on. Wow. I was about to say, usually these fish are easier to catch than the fish that are up there, but these fish are trying to prove me wrong right now. They're insistent on proving me wrong. I have been able to catch those fish. I don't know, it could be just a time of day. I have not been fishing this early in the day, so it could be one of those things where it's literally just a timing thing. But those fish that have been up there high in the water column, just kind of suspended out here over the channel, they've been easier to catch, usually. Especially as you get later up in the afternoon. Right now, that doesn't seem to be the case, and it might just, again, be a timing thing, but I just fired in a couple more fish here swimming out here. My bait's going down to them, 60 feet away. Let's see if they actually come up and try to eat it. Didn't even get on their radar. Huh. So weird. Okay, let's make one more cast up. There's one more little deal right up here where we saw the school. I'm gonna fire up here on these guys up here. The hover, there's a couple of fish you can see right there. See if we can get any of these fish to get interested. That one's coming up for it. So you can eat it. Nope. He's just literally nosed up on it. Now, I know that there's guys who are probably better at this than I am in terms of like playing keep away with these fish too. Because I know that that's a thing, is like you fire on these fish and you just try to keep it away from them. And I know that that's what some guys are really good at, and that's something I need to work on for sure. Scope around to see if I can see any more. They're high up in the water column up here. They would eat the hover. We'll try that here on another fish here in a second. We'll see one. There we go. This one. There you go. Let's see here. Any other fish we can see? Hoping this is all recording, if anything, but we're still on only spot number 2. We still got plenty of time to get something happening. There's a decent fish out there. See if he'll eat it. He's 80 feet out. It's right on him. More cast. I think that might be, I don't know what that is. It's either a really big bass or it's like a gar or something. Okay, let's get out of here. Let's hit another spot. Ooh, okay. That was a gar, so saw it surface. Didn't look like bass, but a lot of these are reacting to bait. I would say 95% of the fish I'm throwing on are bass. They're just acting weird, and you'll see one of these spots we're going to pull up on, these fish for whatever reason are just going to be going crazy, and we're just going to hit them bam, bam, bam. Pause this real quick. Okay, let's keep this rolling. 2 spots down, still got plenty of time. We're going to go run another long point over here. This is just part of the process, guys. Again, timing is really critical. Maybe as that sun pops up, it'll get better. And you know, time of day, when I fish out here, a lot of times when I fish offshore, I'll catch 90% of my fish in 10% of my day. So this is pretty typical, and that's why I want to make these videos and show you, because it's not always just catch, 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 catch. This has happened so often where I literally go around and I'm just not
I'm around the fish all day and they're just not biting, and then all of a sudden it's like they just start firing on the same baits, the same stuff. Very, very weird. Okay, so here we got another really nice main lake channel swing point. We know there's fish on these spots. I know they're bass because I've caught them off these spots. So that's the other part of this, is that, you know, you could think maybe they're crappie or something like that if I hadn't been catching them out here, but I know they're bass out here. Oh goodness, okay. I had to reset my unit, and now all my settings are not correct. I have my Sonar settings guides that I have on fishmoment.com, which give all these settings. I have my fish finder. I don't have my Garmin settings up yet, but we do have a lot of other unit settings. And so, nice thing about these Garmins is they do have these settings presets where I can just quickly change the settings, which is nice. But let's graph this point now that our settings don't look like garbage. Very deep right here, 35, 36 feet right up against this point. I don't see anything crazy on the side scan up on top of that point that made me think, oh man, there's gonna be much fish here. I actually haven't graphed this point this year, so I don't know if there's gonna be fish here, but there is a brush pile. That looks pretty nice, to be honest. Let me switch over to this view. There's a fish up there. It doesn't look very big. Okay, that's interesting. Some nice rock and stuff around here. I haven't graphed this, I haven't been fishing this, so I thought I might as well try something different, because what I have been fishing is not working, which is very typical Beaver Lake stuff. You start catching them on one type of stuff, and then the next time you come out here, you don't catch anything. So we tried 2 spots in a row that fish have been biting on, quote unquote. So now we're gonna just graph some random stuff and see if we can find anything new. That's always works out better for me anyways. We'll end up probably catching all the stuff, brand new stuff. And that's why I don't like fishing a lot of the same water very often. That's why I don't go to the same lakes very often, because I feel like you get this like perception blindness. That's a nice rock pile. This perception blindness where like you see only the spots, you only focus on the spots where you have caught them in the past or where you were catching them. So I prefer, if I'm trying to do these videos, to go to different parts of the lake. Don't repeat the same stuff over and over again, but the fish were biting so cool. Like all the clips and stuff you're seeing in the last 2 times I've been out here, the fish have just been crushing my bait and choking it with the wake bait and all this really cool stuff. So I wanted to show you because it was really cool and I was getting some good clips. And well, none of those clips panned out, but we do have a couple of fish on that rock pile super deep, but they look very small. You can see the dots over here on 2D or on down imaging, but there's no dots or no arches on the 2D sonar. So again, based on the way I set my settings up, I filter out all the smaller fish. So those are probably just little 1 pound fish, nothing big. There are a few fish on the shadow of this ledge that I saw just to the left of the boat, but nothing crazy. I'm gonna try to keep my boat in about like 30, because that seems like where a lot of the fish have been, 25 feet. And I'm gonna work my way, because there's a nice long ridge that sticks out, you can see on the mapping down there. And I'm just gonna try to graph to this little high spot that's up here, see if I can see anything that looks fancy. And if not, then we can always move on. But I gotta start graphing some different stuff, because the last few spots have not been productive. And again, there are fish there, so it could just be a timing thing. It could be There's a front that came through yesterday, so it's very humid this morning. I don't know if that's messing with these fish, making them not want to commit as well. It just could be the fact that those fish bite really well in the middle of the day. And I was doing almost all my filming closer to the middle of the day. I mean, not like, you know, I was doing it around like 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock when I was trying to film those videos. And that's when those fish seem to really fire. So first thing in the morning, it just might not be, these fish might not be biting that well. And that's perfectly normal, that's perfectly fine. And I was thinking I could come out here and find a way to get them to bite, wake baiting or something like that, like you saw, but for whatever reason, it's not working as well as it was earlier. Oh, it's a nice pile. A couple fish on it. Yeah, that looks good right there. Let's make a few casts on that. Pause that right there. You can see there's a couple arches around that thing that are visible. Probably a pound and a half fish. Drop a brush pile icon on that thing. Looks pretty good. And then we'll probably just live scope down the edge of this too. Once we see it, just see if we see any other fish there just kind of suspended out. But new pile, new spot, never fished it before, so see if they're here. I'm gonna switch to my camera view real quick. Okay, live scope is in. I want to wake bait these fish so bad because there's a lot of these fish are set up really well for the wake bait. High in the water column and all that stuff. The wake bait is going to get you really big bites if you do get fish to actually eat the thing. There's a bunch of fish right there. Oh, he's coming for it. Come on, come on, come on. Eat it. Eat it. Oh! Freaking swerved it. Oh my gosh, come on, come on, come on, come on. Oh my gosh. How did you not just come up and obliterate that thing? That makes me so mad. Ugh. He came so hot for it too. Come on, fish, eat that thing. He swerved it too. Man, there's a lot of fish up there, holy crap. They're acting very, very picky today. Bait's up there. Oh, they're coming for it, come on. One of you eat it. Just eat the bait. They're all over it. Come on. Just pick it up. Man, you saw how hot they came on that wake bait. I thought I was about to get hammered. Let me throw a swim bait through there. I need to keep trying baits because that's the thing is they're not eating this stuff. So there's something else I think I can use to get them to bite. I'm gonna throw a little swim bait at them. Maybe a little 2.8 swim bait because there's some fish that are way up there on that pile up there. Maybe throwing the swim bait slow over the top of their heads is what they want. Count that thing down. 4, 5. And then just slowly wind it. Oh, he hit it. Come on. Got smacked. Didn't commit. Got hit again. Didn't commit.
These fish are acting so annoying right now. Oh my goodness. So many of them too. And none of them are committing. Got bumped 3 times on that cast. Look at them all down there. Throw a jig up there in a second. Oh, look at them, they're coming up for it. Oh, there's 5, 6 of them coming up from 80 feet out. They're all following it. They're not hitting it, following it. Give it an erratic retrieve. Will that do anything to them? Literally nothing. These fish don't care. Oh. At least this is fun to watch. You can see these fish going absolutely wild right now. Okay, let me fish a... People are gonna be like, throw a drop shot. I've thrown a drop shot on these fish so much, I have not caught a single fish on a drop shot. I have thrown the drop shot in all these brush piles till my face is blue and like all around these areas, and I cannot get a fish to eat a drop shot. I do not know why. It is so weird. Throw a football jig out there. Football jig actually gets a bit better than the drop shot, which makes absolutely no sense to me, to be honest. But I just don't know if these fish get super pressured by a drop shot or what it is, but I cannot buy it by in the drop shot right now. Which was, normally my go-to deal was the drop shot. On a spot like this, especially if you see all these fish just doing this, you would think drop shot is the bait. Look at all those fish. My goodness. Okay, I need to throw a jerk bait through there. Also probably should throw a hair jig up there because it looks maybe something that's moving faster will get these fish's attention. Maybe the hair jig is the deal. I have so many rods I'm pulling out at this point. I have every rod in the rod box out by the time we're said and done. Come on off of there. Come on now. What in the world? Drop shot or hair jig time. Then we'll throw the jerk bait again on these fish apparently or something. We're gonna have to do something because it's getting kind of ridiculous. Okay, so hair jig's going out. Usually this is all I would need to throw, but I've not caught them on a hair jig as of late out here. These fish, literally the hover rig and the wake bait have been the only 2 things I can actually get bit on. It's so weird that they're not eating it today. Everything else is just not working. You see my hair jig out there at 70 feet. Here comes one. Nope. No. Wanting to play ball. Okay, I'm gonna hover rig around for just a minute more. I'm running out of space put rods. I'm gonna put this rod back here. I don't have time to mess with it. Okay, I'm gonna fire at a couple of these fish just that are out here with the hover rig, because that's been my bread and butter. Not that it's showing today. Look at those fish that are down there on that drop. And there's fish up here. They're everywhere up there, dude. Crazy. Come on, eat. Bunch of them down there on it. Some schoolers out there in the middle too. Man, they're getting after it over there. They keep schooling. I'm gonna have to go hightail it over there to them. They're gonna stop schooling as soon as I start doing this. I know that. Been there, done that one before. See if they come up and eat this though. Oh, come on. Oh, eat it, eat it, eat it. Why? Man, I'm so confused. That's why I can't buy a bite from anything. Very confused. We'll roll this edge real quick of this channel, see if we can see any roamers or something different. We've only been out here for an hour and 15 minutes, so it's not like we've been fishing for that long. But the number of fish that have been an inch from my bait and not eaten it is kind of depressing, to be honest. I'm gonna be 100% honest. I don't like I don't like that. That shouldn't be happening. I should be able to at least, by normal beaver standards, I should probably have like 10 fish in the boat right now. But for whatever reason, right now, I have literally 0. This makes no sense to me at all. Here they all come. Come on, fish, eat it. Eat it! Oh my God. Why? I'm playing keeping away from them, and none of them are just committing. There's so many of them. I know they're spotted bass too. The way they're doing that, those are 100% spotted bass. That, I guess they might be smallmouth. Get it. Oh, come on. You hit it finally. What in the world? Got one to hit it. There's a, oh my gosh, those shad they're eating are tiny. Maybe my bait's too big. Do we need to go tinier on my bait? That's the only thing I can think about, because like the shad I just saw on the surface is like an 1.5 inches long. Okay, that's interesting. So the shad they're feeding on right now are so small, which they haven't been feeding on shad that small. Let me pull out another rod. I have a another hover rig on, but I have it with the 1/3/64 ounce size, and I'm gonna go put on a really small shad imitator, like a tiny bait fish, to see if maybe I can actually get him to bite by going to a smaller shad. They've been feeding on bigger shad, like 3-inch gizzard or 3-inch thread fins, from what I've been seeing them spit up. But right now, I just saw a bait fish floating on the surface, and it's absolutely tiny. Now, I don't know if I have anything that's small even I can think of. We're gonna go through my bait list, my bait box, and see if I have anything that's small. So I got these. Oh my goodness, okay, I got a lot of stuff, but do I have something that's that tiny? Here we go. This is what I'm looking for. Okay, keep these out too. This is the Bass Tricks Live Tricks 3-inch minnow. This thing is very small. I'm pairing it on a little 3/64 ounce 1/0 hover rig. Maybe. Because these fish, I mean, they're coming up hot on this bait, so it's not like I need a bait that sinks very fast. The fall rate is not a problem because they come up so fast to hit this thing. Just need to hook it a little bit deeper in through here. There we go. So maybe it's just that the bait fish are so small, they want a smaller bait. I'll just find one of these fish, fire at it. There's a bunch of fish around. I just want to find one that's... Man, there's a lot of fish around here. What the heck? Look at all those. Holy crap. Oh. I'm watching them bust. Oh my gosh, get over there. They're busting in front of me on the surface even. Got close-ish to those fish. Oh, they went straight down to the bottom. I can't even see my bait, it's so small. Oh, here they come. Oh, come on. If you're not going to eat the smallest bait in my tackle box, I don't know what you guys are going to bite. That's a lot of fish right there. Oh, they're all coming up on it. Come on. Got him. Oh, there we go. I found the bait. Ooh, that's a good one too. That's a freaking good one. Okay, guys, I figured it out. Had to change up my retrieve a little bit too. I had to kind of play keep away and had to go to a really small bait. Oh my gosh, okay. Well, sometimes it's the bait, sometimes it's the area. I think right now it was 100% the bait, not the area. It's a good one. What do I got? This is a striper, I'm gonna be mad. Or a white bass, because it's not coming up. Oh no, it's a nice smallie. Oh gosh, don't get in the trolling motor. That's a nice one, dude. That's a nice smallmouth. There we go, that's what I'm talking about, guys. Finally figured out the deal, oh my gosh. That is a nice beaver fish, guys. That is a above average beaver bass right there. That's a 2.5 pound smallmouth. Oh, you saw the whole thing, the whole process of how I figured out this deal. My bait's floating on the surface. I need to go pick that up because I don't have very many of these, but that is a beautiful smallmouth bass. Beauty right there, wow. On the Bass Tricks Live Tricks 3-inch shad on the 3/64 ounce 1/0 hover rig. That was what it took to get him to bite. It was all a bait thing. I had to cycle through it. I think I can go back to all these areas I just fished and catch them now. Now that I got the bait dialed in, I know what I'm doing. I told you these are bass. They're out here. It's just, I had to get the exact right technique. So let's just get back down in the lake. I'm gonna pause the recording real quick and grab this bait and then we'll get started back up here. Just give me a second. Oh, there we go, guys. It took me an hour and a half to finally figure out this deal. Let me spot lock real quick. Got that fish on a core tackle hover rig. It's the 3/64 ounce size Bass Tricks Live Tricks little minnow. I only have literally 2 of these left. I have more at the house, but I did not bring any more than that. So I think it was a combination of my retrieve maybe and the smaller bait fish. That's the thing about paying attention, guys. You saw that. I switched over because I saw how small these bait fish were. And being observant like that is critical when you're out here on the lake. Just because, you know, I had been catching them on a bigger bait doesn't mean that that's what I need to be doing this morning. And for whatever reason this morning, these fish are feeding on those smaller shad. So I had to go to a smaller shad imitator to get them to bite. I need to find that wad again, because that was crazy. They were all over. Right there. My bait down in there. The way I was fishing it, I'm basically just slowly twitching my rod. I'm just like reeling it in really slow with short rod twitches, and that's when that fish actually ate it. I don't know if the retrieve was critical. Look at all those fish around my bait. There's so many of them there. They kill it, let that bait fall. Look at them all coming up to try to get it. Come on, eat it. Gosh, those are all those smallmouth. There's so many of them right there. And they, for whatever reason, are not like super aggressive. There's more of them out here though off this drop. But like, apparently, that was the deal. To get that one to bite, at least I don't know if that's the end all be all, like have it completely solved, but we got something figured out at the bare minimum. That bait falls so slow. Something came over. Oh, there's one on it right now. Do the rod shake. You saw all those fish grouped up. I mean, we've seen that too multiple times already. So it's not like that was like a new occurrence where all those fish were schooled up. We've had that situation happen 6 or 7 times. It's just, for whatever reason, that fish actually wanted to eat. A couple of them there further up in the water column there. Oh, is he coming for it? Oh, one's coming for it. Come on. Eat it. Oh, come on. Eat it. Well, they're all coming up for it. Holy cow, come on, fish. One of you has to eat it. I don't know if I just got lucky and got one of those fish to actually bite, or if it actually made a difference what I was doing at this point. Oh my gosh, look at that. That freaking good one busted. Oh, they're all over the surface right there. Okay, that's probably a good sign that I could maybe catch one. Got my bait over there. Oh, here it comes. Come on. Got him. There we go. Okay, yeah, that was the retrieve. This is the deal. Oh, another nice smallie out here, guys. Jumping on me through my bait, but oh my gosh, that is incredible. Summertime smallmouth fishing here on Beaver Lake. Oh, this is not even a smallie. This is a nice spotted bass. He jumped like a smallie. Let me get over here and get this guy up into the boat. I mean, that is a nice spotted bass. Another good one. I mean, 5 of those in a tournament out here right now, guys. I mean, it's taken, 10 pounds to get a top 10 in tournaments right now. So 5 fish like the ones I'm catching right now, and we are in business. And now that we've got it all dialed in, it is happening like crazy. Beautiful fish. I only have one more of these little Bass Tricks baits. You need to check these out, guys. Bass Tricks Live Tricks on the 3/64 ounce 1/0 hover rig, available over on Tackle Warehouse. I'll link everything down in the description. That's a beautiful fish. Let's get back down in the lake. That's awesome. I'm gonna pause this recording and restart real quick, and I'll get re-rigged. Okay, let me rig one of these up for you guys so you can see very clearly. This is that 3-inch Bass Tricks Live Tricks with the hover rig. Just insert that hook a 1/4 inch below the head of the bait. Slide that bait up there until basically the plastic hits the lead collar on the hover rig. Push it up the shank, and then you're gonna pull the head of that swim bait over the top of that cone right there. And that bait is setting pretty on there. I actually need to go a little bit further down. There we go. Now we're straight. last one of these guys. So I might just catch one more fish and actually end this uncut anyways, because it's going to get too hot for the cameras here. So usually I'm going to try to do 2 hours of fishing. Hopefully we can catch fish in those 2 hours. Let me switch back over to the Livescope view, just really fast. Let's just try to catch one more fish. Use up our last little minnow here. And then I'm actually going to go try to film another uncut style where I go shallow water fishing. We got some cloud cover today, and I'm going to try to do some shallow water, top water uncut action where I'm hopefully not going to have to worry so much about the camera gear overheating, but we're going to see. So stay tuned for that. If I don't catch anything, I'm not going to post it, but it's the kind of day where I should be able to get some good blow-ups on a buzzbait up shallow too. So we're going to try that. Fish at the moment shallow water fishing. I love fishing a buzzbait in this time of year. I got a knot in my line. Let me get this. Actually, I'm just going to cut this and retie, because might as well retie, not break off. Caught 2 nice fish, and this is light line. Using 6-pound test here, guys, on a Denali covert light 6'10" medium power fast action spinning rod, and it's perfect for this little tiny hover rig. Those fish are just sucking this little tiny bait down. These bass tricks, live tricks don't hold up super well in terms of fish catches. You're going to lose one almost every fish catch, it seems like, but I got these things just to kind of test out with them after Matt talked about them in a video, and whew, they work. Okay, so let's try to find some of these fish. So those fish were actually schooling. Oh, that looks pretty good right there. They were actually schooling, and that helped, I think, get those fish actually to eat. And that might be the deal where you need to find those fish actively schooled up, actively feeding. Oh, there's one. He's on my bait. Come on. Got him. Oh, another good one. Okay, now it's the bait, guys. I'm telling you, it's 100% bait choice. It's a good fish. Oh, big spotted bass. Got to get the right bait. Got to get that hover rig with the small bass tricks. I always try to have a lot of baits. You see me rotating baits like crazy, guys, offshore, because there's not that much you can do a lot of times about the fish's mood and what they're feeding on. So you got to experiment. Oh, that's a big spotted bass. Look at that thing. Absolute tanker. Another 2-pounder on that. Oh, my bait didn't come off either. That's good. Another 2-pounder. Beautiful fish. Get 5 of these today, guys. We are going to be in business on a Beaver Lake tournament or anything like that, and this is something that a lot of guys probably are not doing, so you need to get yourself some of these. You can fire this little bait too over the top of structure on these clear lakes without the Livescope, because if you see them busting or if you have a brush pile or whatever, fire this little bait over the top of those spots and just twitch it around. I'm using the Livescope today, which obviously helps, but it's not mandatory to get this bait to work. It matches the hatch. The bait fish out here are absolutely tiny, and by matching the hatch, going to that really small bait, that's what's getting these fish in the boat. That's a good one. Oh man, gets me pumped up, dude. Absolutely pumped up. And I think the retrieve has something to do with it, because before I would just kind of cast it out and just that bait would just get in front of those fish's face. But now what I'm doing is when it gets close to one, I start basically what I'm doing is just twitching my rod and reeling really slow. And that's like the traditional hover strolling retrieve that guys use over in Japan. And oh, look at all of them schooling up there. Get my bait up there. That's the traditional hover rig retrieve. And my bait fell down. That's what usually guys do. So I think that's like the trick. Oh, they kind of went down. There's a bunch of them up there though. That's usually the trick with that retrieve. I think his bait might be done though. It's kind of a little bit worse for wear right now. So just, yeah, jiggle that rod, shake it, reel, shake it, reel. Seems like that is actually triggering these fish to bite. Just working it super slow. And it seems like it helps if these fish are kind of schooled up and aggressive, because if they're just kind of out here like this, and it may have been a time of day thing too, in terms of like these fish started busting. I didn't see fish busting on the other spots really, but they're busting here. Oh, there they are. There's fish over here. I saw them busting out here, so it may also just be a timing deal where that sun finally got up enough where these fish are actually busting. That could be 100% a factor in this. See if we can get one more for you guys. If I hadn't seen that little tiny shad, today this video could have gone completely different. I'm gonna try another bait because I'm gonna go to this Kitech Shad Impact. It's a 4-inch bait on the same hook because that Bass Tricks just is falling apart on me. I'm gonna see if they'll actually eat this bigger bait. I don't know if they will, so we're about to find out. Just to kind of test our hypothesis, because if I catch one on this, then maybe it was just a timing deal and maybe it wasn't, or maybe the hover rig I was fishing was too heavy. That could also have been something where like I'm fishing the 1/8 ounce and they really wanted that like 3/64, that lighter size. It also could just be my retrieve on this bait was what got these fish excited. There's a lot of potential variables that hard to always account for everything and know exactly what's causing these fish to bite better or worse. Do have to kind of scope around though and find some again that are active. Let's see here. Oh, here this comes one. Eat it, fish. You gonna eat it? Are you gonna eat it? Oh, you swerved it. See, I wasn't seeing these fish swerve it as bad when I was fishing that little tiny Bass Tricks. Now that I've gone to this 4-inch, a little bit bigger bait, they're swerving it. Like they don't, you see all those fish there up there on the bottom too. There's a bunch of them down there on the bottom, about right there at 70 feet. They're just sitting down there. Those little smallmouth, I'm pretty sure. They're just chilling on the bottom, roaming. But when they're up in the water column, they'll actually come up and eat this thing. But that little smaller profile bait is the deal, because otherwise they just swerve it. If it's 4 inches or 5-inch bait. So matching the hatch, the size of the bait, I'm out of baits, so I'm kind of in a pickle, because I don't really have anything else. I could cut this bait down and stuff like that probably. But yeah, we're kind of in a situation where we're out of baits. So we may just have to call it a day. I want to just kind of test this hypothesis with this bait. I just want to get another scenario where those fish are like really going and fire this in there and just see if I can still get bit. Because if that's, again, I don't want to completely rule out that it's just a timing thing. Let's see here. Fish down there. Oh, he's coming up for it. Come on. Come on. Come on. Eat it. There's like 2 or 3 good ones underneath it right now. Come on. It's funny too, just so you know, I haven't caught a fish on this spot. The only spot I caught a fish on is a spot I literally hadn't fished. I had all these spots found. I was like, oh, I have all these areas I can go check out in this video and go catch fish, yada yada. And this is the one spot I hadn't graphed yet. And I don't know, there was a bunch of pleasure boaters out here skiing around earlier, so I didn't even come over here. And this turns out to be the one spot where I catch my fish, is where I literally never fished. So that's pretty typical too. That's why it's helpful sometimes to just graph and not worry so much about where you caught them before. But, I mean, you guys kind of get the idea of what's going on here. I mean, I would just be doing the same thing, just scoping around, waiting for the opportunity when those fish start busting through the shad higher in the water column, and then throw this hover rig over at them and get bit. That's just kind of the process for today. And finally matched the hatch, found the right bait. So It's not super complicated at the end of the day. It's just, I mean, we found them with the 2D sonar with the down imaging, which obviously helps a lot, kind of speed up the process. Then we're pretty far away from where we started. So we kind of got that rolling, which helps a lot. Then once we got the spot found, then we had to find the right bait to get them to bite and maybe hit the timing better than what we had initially. I don't know exactly how much that played, but finding the right retrieve, the right bait, the right timing, all that played a factor, I think, and led to us actually catching 3 quality fish. And it didn't happen immediately. You guys got to realize that. It wasn't like I just pulled up here and just started catching them. And that's not how it goes offshore 95% of the time. Most of the time it's like this, where you kind of have to figure it out, play it by ear, just kind of learn as you go. And these fish really don't want this. Oh, this bigger bait. They hit it. They really want that small bait. It just matches the hatch so much better than this bigger bait. They won't touch it. It's so weird. What an interesting day. Oh, there they are. See if I can get one of these to bite. Were any of you going to come look at my bait? Not interested at all? It's 50, 60 feet out. Oh, you're interested. Come on. Man. You see those are good quality fish on the Livescope. That bait barely falls down to them. But when they're not aggressive, they just don't care. Here comes a couple. And it's just, he just swerves around it. Yeah, that Bass Tricks little deal, guys, I'm telling you. Get that little Bass Tricks Flash Tricks. That thing is juice. I have none left, so I'm probably going to end the day here. Let me switch to my other camera so I can kind of talk you guys out real quick. Okay, guys, so that is a very interesting development. Basically, we switched from this little 3-inch shad to this 4-inch shad, which I would think would not make that big of a difference. But for whatever reason, this little Bass Tricks Flash Tricks is just a tiny bit smaller, a little bit smaller profile. That's what they wanted. They'll swerve this Kitech, I mean, literally everything else I was throwing. It didn't really matter what I was throwing, but this little bait was absolutely the deal. Don't know why, but that's just kind of fishing sometimes. You have to experiment and try it out. The hover rig has been my deal though, guys. I mean, I know we make it over a core tackle, but it definitely is something special. These fish haven't seen anything like it out here, and you can go through and throw a lot of different baits, but if you can find the right little bait to put on that hover rig, those fish will come out of that deeper water and just get all over it. So pretty cool little deal. Hopefully all the footage recorded okay and you guys could see all that. And now we're going to actually get to the bank because we got a little bit of weather coming in, some clouds and stuff, and I think I can catch them on the buzzbait. So we're gonna go try to do that here now, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, leave a comment down below, letting me know that you made it to the end, which is really cool if you watched it all the way to here. And also let me know what you thought down in the comments of this new format. So thanks again for checking out this video. We'll see you all next one.